Today on the Dear BAMf podcast, we have Kerry Bennett. She's the head of marketing and branding at Upfront Ventures, which, if you don't know, is a pretty prestigious venture fund based in Los Angeles. She also works on the brand marketing, strategy, communication, consumer insights, and even the e-commerce for all the portfolio companies they have. She's also a proud introvert and a graduate from Princeton. No big deal. We'll hear from Kerry now. Hey everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the podcast for PR and marketing pros such as yourself. Thanks for listening. I'm Beck Bamberger, hosting this thing, as you guys have now heard, for a couple weeks from BAM Communications. And today we are so blessed to have the wonderful, the incredible Kerry Bennett from Upfront Ventures. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing all right. You know, amid this whole thing, we were talking ahead of this of just saying like, yeah, how's the virus going? What's happening with all our portfolio companies and stuff? Oh, for people who don't know, by the way, just Upfront Ventures is pretty much the fund in LA that's been around, funds a lot of the LA ecosystem that's come out. Kerry herself used to be at Dog Vacay, used to do Nordstrom's company stuff. You've been around basically, Kerry. So that's why you're on this show.
That's your way of saying I'm old.
No, Kerry, because
I'm seasoned.
We're seasoned pros here.
That's right. Thrilled to be here. Thrilled to solve some problems.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to get into these questions because all you guys listening send us such good ones. So here we go. Here's our first one. A tech startup client didn't tell us about their pending lawsuit from a former employee over a sexual assault allegation. We were proactively pitching media about an upcoming new product announcement when a reporter from a well-known tech publication responding, letting us know that, quote, no, they would not like more information about the new product, but asked for more information about the pending lawsuit.
Yikes.
After bringing this up to the client and seeing the filed suit on public record, you see that there were some pretty hairy allegations included with many specifics. The client is being told by their lawyers to keep quiet and deny allegations. What should we do next?
Oh boy.
Yes. Kerry, why don't you start with that one? We just dive right in. Let's do it.
My first piece of advice for anybody listening that's not in an agency, that's in-house, this brings to life how important it is to have a culture of transparency with your agency. You need to be able to share stuff that maybe will never come to light, but it's terrible when somebody gets surprised with this. Agencies are on your side, and they can't do their best work if they don't know stuff like this is coming. So if there are any clients that are out there listening, be more transparent than less. Your agency is there to be your partner and to protect you. And I think that's such an important piece of things, to have that culture and to have a crisis comms plan so you're not like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
But here we are with this question, what do we do now, right? And it feels like there are sort of two things this person's dealing with. One is how to work with the client to manage the fallout of this.
Yeah.
And the other is how do you support this product launch that you're being tasked to do? And those are kind of two pretty different things.
Yes. And then you have the lawyer saying, well, why don't you keep quiet and stuff? So yeah, how would you look at those two things then?
I mean, I'll start with what almost feels like the easier piece of things, which is how do you support the product launch? And I think in this case, it depends on what the industry is. So maybe it's e-commerce or consumer, and you can approach other outlets that aren't going to necessarily know about this news, depending on how easy it is to find. Maybe there's owned your blog or influencers that you can work with to support your product launch. Because let's face it, a lot of product launches aren't super newsworthy anyway, and there are a lot of other better ways to get the word out about the product itself that isn't just tech press. So from a supporting the product launch perspective, I feel like explore other publications, other categories that might be able to cover this without feeling like they also have to be investigative journalism.
Yeah, because this person did say a well-known tech publication responded. So yes, to that point. +1, Kerry. Okay, second part.
So the second part is how to work with the client to manage the fallout. And I think what's kind of crazy is if this person can find this news simply by Googling the information, then it's already out there. And so it feels like, of course, we don't know We don't know the details. There might be actually good legal reasons to keep this quiet, but I think we all know that bad news doesn't just go away, right? It doesn't fix itself, and just pretending it's not there, the way my cat pretends the dry food just is not there, does not mean that they're going to get something better if they just ignore it for longer, right?
Way to call it a cat analogy.
I got animal analogies the whole day. Have we lost all the listeners already?
No. I bet they love it. They're like, yes, makes sense.
I think first try to understand. I mean, this well-known tech publication is already asking for comment. So it almost sounds like there's a story out there that's brewing, which means that staying completely quiet is probably not an option anymore.
Yeah. And then in this piece, they're saying, told by the lawyers to keep quiet and deny allegations. Now, see, that's different. Those can exist side by side. So there's already something a bit weird there. But to your point, yeah, you can. It's already out.
It's already out, right? And so that's where you start to, I say, partner with your client, partner with the counsel as much as you can. If this person isn't particularly skilled in crisis comms, think about bringing in a crisis comms partner, because we all know that everybody listens to a third party more than they listen to internal people. So in this case, if there's somebody else who can help the client kind of navigate how to talk about it. And of course, there are legal reasons probably that they can't say a lot of things, but they can say something, right? And in this day and age, in a case of this nature, not saying anything in the tech world is not really an option.
No.
So I think what's the best possible way to approach this to manage the fallout that is probably coming.
And then I would say, if this is a client that is desirable to have a long-term partnership with, planning for the post air of this, how do we not get ourselves in a situation ever again? What does that crisis roadmap look like? What are all the other potential scenarios? I think that's the biggest thing we've just seen is that, you ask a client, do you have your crisis plan in place? And they go like, in case this happens, we're in security. So in case we leak information, we're like, that's a scenario planning for one situation. That is not a crisis plan. A crisis plan should have multiple scenarios so that you can pick from the shelf of, it was that crisis now. And then you know what to do with that. Not that you can anticipate everything, of course, but you have a game plan for the variety of ones that you can more or less anticipate.
Absolutely. And I think that's truly crisis communications, both externally as well as internally. What happens if this CEO does decide to step back? Who's next? Who's next in charge? Do we have a relationship with that person? Who's going to take over? How do we communicate that? Really thinking through all of those scenarios. I couldn't agree more. There's so many different pitfalls that can happen to just find the pessimist in your organization and have them think through every terrible scenario and then have a plan for it.
Oh, that's a good tip, actually. I haven't heard of that. Of go to that person who's just doomsdayer person if you have that.
There is one.
Exactly. I was going to say, there is the overly cautious planner. Yes, exactly.
Right. Go find the CFO. They'll probably help you.
Exactly. Or the CTO, because those are the most judgmental typically.
Absolutely. They think what you do is stupid anyway. So you can get them to give you all the feedback. But the last thing I would say, and I'm sure anyone listening would not find themselves in a situation like this, but for the letter writer, don't let yourself get caught up in anything that you feel like is unethical or that you know to be false. There's one thing to not comment about something. There's one thing to let the situation unfold. It's another thing entirely if you're being asked to say things that are not true, to do something that feels like that's not ethical or not in your character. So give yourself a good boundary before you get asked to do something.
Oh, yes. We tackled a similar question to that yesterday, but we'll continue on with our list because we got a lot of questions and they're all hairy. So let's go, Miss Kerry. Here we go. Dear BAMf, our company secured a new round of funding that we were planning on announcing in the next couple of weeks. But we've recently learned that our CEO is dealing with a sensitive health issue that is taking her out of commission for about a month, effective immediately. We would hold on the news, but we are getting pressure from the board to announce ASAP. How would you recommend navigating this, given that the public face of the company is not available for interviews during this time?
Man, well, first, congrats on the funding for the company and really sorry about the CEO. And sad for that person personally. And if you didn't listen to the first question about the importance of a crisis communications plan, please rewind
there you go.
Listen to it again, because this is one of those things where what happens if the face of your company is taken out of commission? What are your other options? And not to try to be solving that on the fly. But in this case, I think because the board is pushing for the funding announcement, this actually can be used in the agency's favor, depending on the kind of news. Because it's funding, especially, maybe the VC can be a proxy for the CEO. Maybe there's a statement that can come from the CEO, and then the VC can be available for further questions. Or somebody else in the organization that was involved with the funding or is involved with the vision of the company. Maybe that's a CFO, maybe that's a COO, maybe there's a co-founder. There are other people that can speak to this. And I think in funding announcements, especially, what a reporter wants is to understand why this company, what they're going to do with the money, why this is a problem to be solved, why this is an important milestone. And there are other people who can tell that story if coached appropriately. What do you think?
Well, the next wrinkle of this, I agree with all of that. You got to have your bench of speakers, the people who can equally chime in and speak to this. And that obviously should be part of your plan whenever you're executing this. So forget even the quote unquote crisis of someone, the CEO being out of commission for a while or having a disaster or insert whatever. You usually have 2-3+ spokespeople that should be at the ready and, by the way, trained up to pitch in if they need to in a situation like this. But then the next caveat of this is, okay, so let's say there's that VC who's going to speak on behalf of this funding news. What if the question then becomes from the founder, oh, so why did the PR people, why'd you guys put me with the VC? Where's the CEO? What's happening there? How do you navigate then that question? Because, and we can't tell exactly from this question, but they do say a sensitive health issue. So I'm assuming they definitely don't want that out. But how would you navigate around that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the issue and it depends on the company. Maybe I'm being naive. You can tell me this, but unless you're a really big Fortune 500 company or really big, a unicorn, or you have a really well-known CEO, if in fact a reporter does ask you that, I think it's possible to give them the information that they're just not available due to a personal reason, but they'll be back soon or something. And I think most people aren't going to try to screw you over with that information. I think people, press is human, and assuming that it's said in the right way that doesn't signal that there's another story there, I think that's a manageable thing. And I also think this comes back to, this is where agencies and PR professionals earn their money, right? This is where they're capable of doing stuff that in-house people maybe aren't. You hopefully have a relationship with with the reporter or with people that you're reaching out to, that they trust you, that if you're giving them that information, they trust that you're being honest, and you can trust that they're not going to share that. So I would hope that would be one piece of things. And then again, I think it comes back to hopefully find the next best person to speak to this news, such that the reporter's not going to say, why am I not talking to the CEO? But the CFO is a good resource for them. But there's no question that it's hard. And there are times, in this day and age where everything's going to come out eventually, depending on the health issue, there maybe there's a chance to share that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe if it's tied to somehow the brand or something about wellness or something. I mean, obviously we don't have specifics in this question, but there could be something around that. And that's another consideration for sure. Just imagine, and this is like so common, okay, there's clearly an internal memo that circulated around. Again, this is probably not a unicorn or a Fortune 500 company, but there's an internal memo or there's a situation and all you need is one employee to leak that, mention that, et cetera. Then that's on Twitter, then that blows up. I mean, there's just no hiding information. So why not be on the offense and just go like, okay, great. Likelihood of this coming out because we're trying to put ourselves in the spotlight even more so. Okay, well, we got to address that. Let's just do that. It'll mitigate any of these concerns.
And again, we would never wish a health issue on people, but humans respond to human stories. And I think we're always surprised when we see the day and age of the untouchable CEO who's perfectly polished, who's only accessible to the top level reporters, who's completely, media trained and doesn't have any shred of humanity. Those days are gone. Those days where you can walk the line and not have opinions and not be a human accessible person is not today. And so if it makes sense, and of course, if it makes sense for the CEO to feel like they want to share that news, there may be a way to do it.
I agree. Next question here. Dear BAMf, my portfolio companies are freaking out during this pandemic. Some founders are asking more money, more resources, and more media coverage from me. I'm getting overwhelmed because they're having similar issues. Should I host a town hall to address all at once with my clients, or continue to manage each individually, even though that's more work for me? I want to say too that this could be something like, let's say if you're an internal company, and now every VP that ever was under the sun is now asking you to be like, I want to do content, and I want to write this, and I want to write this. I know, Kerry, you can relate to this from our VC Comms Con we had, where like every single partner wants to blow you up with their view and what they should be focused on in this time. So in this situation, what would you advise?
Did you write this question, Beck? Is this you?
I did not, Kerry. No, this came through our forms. No.
I feel like, but you're so right. Can we not all empathize with this question? Of course, the coronavirus is a particular crazy black swan event in time, but there are so many times when an event happens such that the pressure on an agency for whatever, to reduce costs, to add people, to do more, becomes really pronounced. Okay, on the flip side of what I said for the first question, I do want to just say clients are people too, right? And it's easy to forget that. And often clients are terrible stewards of an agency-client relationship. But look, I've been a terrible client, and hopefully we can all do better. But I think it's important to remember that they're getting their own pressure from their board, from their internal people, from their CEOs to do more and to be as productive and as positive as possible in these times. And so if possible for the original letter writer to remember that and to be as empathetic as possible to these clients, it's not because they're terrible people, and it's not maybe they're terrible. And it's probably not because they're unrealistic. It's because everybody feels under pressure and everybody feels frightened. And the more you can put yourself on the same side with your client, to make them look good internally and to make the company look good, which of course we're always doing anyway, but particularly in these moments, is the first place, as opposed to, it's very easy to feel like it's a combative relationship and it's a pulling and it's a draining of resources, as opposed to we're all facing this together. So that would be the first thing I would say.
I'd say too, for this particular person, it looks like they're trying to, now if it's various clients who don't know each other, I would definitely not do let's have a town hall about how I'm dealing with all of you. Like, no client wants to feel that there's another.
Correct.
You just don't. If it's internal, then perhaps that could be done. But what I always like to think about and it's just much more of like a client service psychological thing, is what's the source of where this action is coming from, or this feeling is coming from?
Yes.
Oh, it's because that senior vice president that our comms person reports to,
yes,
is reining their neck, just wringing their neck for something, is super demanding. Oh, it's because there's a new board member and now there's pressure coming on from that person that's trickling down. Or, oh, this person is 4 months new into the job and they're under a lot of heat right now, especially with the virus, the cuts and the budget constraints of making sure their job is still on. So people don't just act. People act because of some pressure or some impetus. Then they have a reaction too. So that's always the thing I think to dig into, which is, I would say, more advanced client comms or just client relationship servicing. But if you can dig into that, and especially in this time with the more humanitarian notion or respect for humanity that we're having right now, I think, and just like, hey, client, let's have a conversation. What's going on here, one-on-one, not on the weekly status call, not on the thing with 3 other people on it, but just one-on-one. Especially if you do have an established relationship, that could probably get you a lot more insight here.
Absolutely, and I think for all of those reasons, it's a chance when you're being asked to do more, produce more, maybe even taking a step back and say, things have changed now. Things have changed in your organization. Things have changed in the world. Let's look at your strategic plan that we have for the year, because I hope everybody has one, and say, what if this makes sense anymore? What if this doesn't? And I think the more that it's so easy, I think, when you are an agency or when you are in a servicing role, and to your point, that can be an in-house role, to feel like you're always on your back foot. You're always getting hit with those waves of requests. You're always reacting to stuff. So the more you can proactively say, we're looking at your plan, this we have to throw out, here are some ideas I have for you, I think everybody feels calmer, because A, there's a plan, B, there's something they can control, C, there's a reason for doing what they're doing, as opposed to like, let's just have more, let's just do more. Because we all know adding more noise is not the answer.
Especially right now. We were just talking about this. No need for more.
No need for more. I would echo what we talked about earlier, is if there are ways to use third-party resources or studies or articles that are echoing the worldview you're trying to share with your client, that's always a great way to communicate with them as well. So it's not you saying, we can't do this. It's not you saying, nobody wants to hear this news. It's not you saying, whatever. It's giving your internal client some firepower to be able to feel confident about the plan that you have.
That's why we do the Ask Media Anything, because now you can hear straight from the media's mouth, oh, they do want this pitch, or they don't want this pitch. And that's not going to work. So don't ask us then. It's great. My little hack.
To your point, if they are internal clients, or if their clients do know each other, I think there's a lot of benefit in getting people who are all dealing with the same problems together in a room. And Beck, you do that so well with all of your communities, but the benefit of solving problems together, or even just having people who can commiserate about the same issues, is not only a real value add for the client, but again, it gives them confidence to tell their bosses, their internal stakeholders, that their solutions are the right ones, because everybody's trying to deal with the same thing. They're not alone. They're not the only one dealing with this problem.
True. Next and last question for today, Kerry. Here we go. Dear BAMf, my new client has told me on several occasions that the executive team does not see the value in PR and doesn't care if announcements are strategic. Oh gosh, but instead just wants to get, quote, the word out. What's the best way to showcase our value to the exec team when they are not our day-to-day contact? Also, how do you push back and gain trust if a client doesn't want to take your strategic counsel?
Girl, you in danger.
Yeah.
or guy, whatever.
Yeah, but also, look, new client, my new client.
Well, are you going to say the same thing I am, which is, first of all, before you ever sign a deal, before you ever take on a new client, set expectations up front. What do they think the benefit of PR is? What do they think success looks like in an engagement with you? What will make them happy and want to go home and tell their partner about it? What do they think is realistic, and what do you think is realistic? And do not be afraid to walk away, even if you really need the business, because this isn't going to end well.
You're not going to win.
You're not going to win. And you're going to end up writing into a podcast asking what to do because your client doesn't value what you do, which we're really grateful for.
Yes, we are. We are here.
But also, I really feel like the value of so much of the success of an agency-client partnership is in setting expectations up front. I know you think a lot about that. What do you think about that?
We do. We have a Designing the Alliance call that's on the kickoff, but long before we even get on the kickoff is much more of a discussion. And even in the legal document that they sign is a section that talks about what they're on the hook for from a participating aspect, and then also from an expectation aspect. So we try to mitigate this situation from ever happening, such that we don't hear then suddenly through the grapevine or directly on a first call, oh, by the way, yeah, we got this through and this budget was approved. Oh, but the exec team, yeah, no one likes this. Because now you have a situation of people sitting in a room with their arms crossed going like, yeah, so that money we're spending over there, what a waste, or it's not doing anything or whatever, so you're already on the defense, and I hate that. It is what it is, but to prevent that, you need to mitigate with what you're saying, Kerry, on having those upfront conversations, getting that buy-in and so forth, which is why too, and this is perhaps an aspect of the companies of the size that we deal with, but we have the founders involved. We have the CEO sitting at the table, making this decision, signing on they sign the check typically or sign the contract. So it's not the, director of comms person, which may be 7 layers down, let's say at a well-funded startup or whatever company we're dealing with, but it's actually like the top brass who's making that final decision. And then you'll get around, I think, this type of situation. We don't know in this prompt here they say the executive team. So we don't know if it's 1 or 2 or all, but that's how you avoid that is you get from the top people involved in that conversation early and then put them on the hook of actually signing the deal, signing their name to their expectations. So there's not any misalignment with this.
I mean, hopefully you're in love on your wedding day, right? Like if you're a new client and they already don't think that PR adds value, what happens? But this person has written in, it's happening. So let's give them some advice. So my first piece of advice, which you actually touched on a little bit in the last question, is try to understand what get the word out means to them. Okay, what does success actually look like to them? In an ideal world, you can wrap that into actual strategic work, but maybe they think it means a lot of press and that's what they want. Or maybe they think it means certain groups of people need to know about the business, or it needs to be in or maybe they have a certain outlet that they're really interested in being in. And at least you know what that means. Like get the word out is literally meaningless. Like what does that mean?
Yeah.
So the more you can understand what success looks like, even if it's crazy town, at least you're both operating with the same set of information than you were before.
One thing I'd say here too, get the word out, and we've seen this before, can mean in their book, well, we write a press release every other day.
Right.
That's what they think, which does nothing, we all know. But secondly, is vastly different than we expect to be in a top tier national placement every week or several times a month, something like that. Those are vastly different. Vastly different.
And like, I always think when I see, objectives of an announcement, we want to get coverage, XYZ coverage. I'm like, the objective of a car is not to drive on the streets. The objective of a car is to get somewhere. So the objective of an announcement, what are we trying to do here? And the more you can try to help your internal advocate, who hopefully is an advocate for you, right? Your comms connection or whatever, to link the work to to your overall business efforts or whatever overall narrative there is, the better off you are. Even if it feels like that's not as much press, but you're helping to change the conversation around the product, for example, or they really just need to drive. They really just need to drive more top of funnel enterprise company. There's a way. That's what the business needs. Maybe they don't see how strategically PR can fit into that, but we can see how strategically PR fits into that, and to try to drive to actually what's driving the business, because that's what the executives presumably care about.
Kerry, these were some tough ones today. Oh, yes. Did you have more?
The last thing I would just say is I think particularly in these bigger companies, if you haven't started the relationship with the founders and with the executive team, or honestly, if you're really lucky and the company has grown quite a lot and now the founder isn't as involved and there are layers, I think one of the things that agencies, not you, Beck, of course, you do a great job of this, but a lot of agencies can do a better job of building advocates across the organization that isn't just your day-to-day client.
Oh, we call this the 3-on-3 rule. They know at least 3 of us, and we know at least 3 over there. Because you do not want to, it's way too dangerous. As, let's say, the agency owner, but also from the client perspective of, there's just one person that holds the whole relationship, because frankly, even if it's the founder, they could be ousted. They could go. Now who's holding the bag? And then on the same thing on our side, just to mitigate, okay, we can't have someone go on vacation for 2 weeks and the client isn't getting any service during that time. You just can't do that. It's so common though in the agency world. Okay, we can't even talk about that. But the point is, or God forbid, you have to fire that person or something. Now where does that leave the client? Well, now your client's probably gone too. So the 3-on-3 rule we've seen this rule play in so many times.
Absolutely.
So many times.
I think somebody who's running an account is pretty senior and they feel senior on the business and they're the internal link. But use your agency owner to build relationships with the founders that are different than what you're doing. Use, if you have data people, find somebody internally that can be another advocate for you so that you are become more of an essential part of their business. I know I've worked with agencies who have made a real effort to do that and to be in our space and to have us in their space. And I've worked with agencies for multiple years where unless we paid for them to fly out, they would never come out. And I get that from a financial perspective, but from a relationship building perspective, it feels like it's a very transactional business, right? And it's a bit pound foolish because they don't have the chance to build relationships with people that aren't on their weekly calls.
Well said, Kerry.
3-on-3 rule. I'm going to do it.
Thank you for being on today, Kerry. This has been great. Everyone, if you're not familiar with Upfront Ventures, check it out. They're fantastic. Basically built the LA ecosystem in the tech world. And Kerry, thanks for being a BAMf.
Thanks so much for having me on this podcast and for having me in your community. You do a great job.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. Our music was composed by Tiffany Dizon, played by San Diego Symphony's Art of the Lawn, and produced by Daniel Kostner. Our podcast was produced by Citizen Recording. If you have a hairy PR or marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us by going to www.bamcommunications.biz/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. We'll be back next Monday with another episode of Dear BAMf. Until then,